feel like the applications are pretty
Where each of them uses your software for making like modules, like dialogue.
They can do a lot of things in it first.
Good morning, everyone. Let's get started. Okay, I reviewed your your assignments. You've got the grades. Most of you did very well, and like you put a lot of effort into the assignment, which was like showing that like a lot of progress has happened. I saw some mistakes, mostly with just like how you implement the methods, and that's okay. Like the assignment is to kind of like push you to study and then identify where you need to more like work more, and then like use that as a way to like reflecting on your learning and again learn. So for this homework, we went through about like six practices, and as like from the methods, like from the list, as well as like the lectures. I put like two versions. Like please, like if you had like an issue with the methods, make sure to check them. What I did, I put like one version, like just a regular, like just like or basically without using methods, implementing the code, as well as like doing that with like implementing the code, like with the methods. And we can see that we only put like the part that could be repeated and like put it inside a method to create like modular programs. The idea behind methods is like create different modules that like can perform one single task. I've added like for each of these, but like basically I wanted to put them like without if and else. So you see like if and else, like the option, it's just like you're set like checking multiple options at the time, but technically this is the same thing. Like you can create it separately and then just put it inside like those like decision like nodes. I like ask you to make sure that like you separate your code for every option into input, process, and output. And the process part is the part either process and then you can think of the output as well. But the input is collected, and then you move to the process, and what is the process is going to be put into a method. So that way you're separating these three from each other. Input is collected here for the new grade. And then I have a method that I say, if this is the grade and this is the list of the grades, tell me how many grades, how many enrollment exist with that grade. So the task of this method is to get a grade as well as get a new, like the list of the grades, as well as getting the new grade or like the grade we are looking for, and say, okay, I get the list of the grades as well as the new grade, count and then do a search to compare each grade for each like grading grade. I saw some codes that use some codes that I couldn't identify. I'm not sure, we didn't talk about them. This should be simple as like checking to a strings. If you use like a string dot something these are not things that we covered. So if we didn't cover, like I didn't like expect anything. Like I was expecting just a regular like very simple comparison between two strings. Here, like for each of the like the grades, use for each and say for each grade in grades, like check whether like the grade is equal to that grade, and so counter plus plus and then return. Okay, so this module is designed to give me how many enrollment exist with a particular grade. That's it. There is no input here, okay, or like producing output. This task is very limited to one single task. So make sure to like focus on like practicing and like separating the task and then implementing methods that perform a task. Now, I told you to count grades based on a new grade. What if I tell you count on a grade based on a registration year? It would be the same thing. That's the beauty of creating method, implementation of methods, is that if I change this, if you created this module and I tell you, okay, now we are recording the registration years, there is one list, let's say registration years. Get the registration year and tell me how many students have registered in 2018. You would have this a very similar method to this. The difference would be the list would be an integer of the registered years as well as a registered year. Okay. Because you've implemented this, now you have an idea how to implement similar modules. And that's the important thing about creating methods that perform single task. One example, I want to just quickly review. This was one of the common design of methods, and I want to highlight the issue with this design is that now you created a method that is not independent. It is getting the input inside the method. Okay, you see console.readline, you get the new grade and then check it. What if I already have the grade? This method says you have to always, when you call this method, you have to always collect the grade. But I already have the grade. Let's say I have the database. I've already collected the data. The data already exists. I get the information from the database. Then I want to try to do just accounting. I'm not doing I don't want to do but here you've said every time you want to count the grade, you have to collect the new grade in this method. But the difference here is that in the module that I have created, I've said it doesn't matter. Anytime you call this method, you just need to say what is the grade and what is the list of grades so I can count it. See the difference? It is not reliance on the input. It says, give me the information and I will give you the total count. But here you're creating this dependence, say the grade has to be collected and then you can count it. And then the other part is that you're printing out the grade and also not returning the count. So what if I needed the result of this the counting? I want to use it for a different purpose. Now, you created a void method, it doesn't return the result of that process. And also you're printing out the result. What if I needed to do the counting for a different reason, not just showing it to the user? But you have to, you've created a module that you're forcing me to display this to the user. I cannot use this module for other purposes. Okay, so make sure that you separate them. This should have assume that every time you create a method, assume that information has already exist, and with the with that, it should be supplied to the method, and then you perform that function. In this case, just counting the number of enrollment that exists with that grade, and then returning the value, how many exist. Okay, so that was one of the common mistake. The other mistake I saw was just declaring the list inside the program class. I'm not sure why we didn't talk about that. This also in the comments I said you need to declare the list inside the main the main method. These are part of this program. That's not a good way to declare variables or a list or anything inside the program class. And I took points for that because we didn't talk about we don't want to specify anything inside the program class, whether it's a variable or it's a a list. Okay, with that, I want to just let me see. Okay, so I want to go back to what we are going to do today. Last session, so we talked about we covered lecture 8. We went through a few things last session. Let me start with the one that okay. So first we talked about like making like fields as private because we wanted to make this like field as part of the class, like the class, and like making it unique to a class. And like we wanted to like limit the accessibility to data that are stored in the objects. So we made, like we said, we are going to make the fields as private, and then create ways that people like the like when like outside world can like access to the data, whether for like getting like what is the like value, or whether they want to like store a value in an object field. So we use the properties to do that. The subject property is a special type of method. It will have two, like it can have like either get or set or both. And like it defines with each of this, you can define the way that like this like a field can be like used. For example, like if you define the get in the property, you're specifying how like by calling this property, like you can get the value that is stored in the field. And by specifying the set side, you're saying that like you can use this property to set a value to this field. Okay. So we created a way to like do that using methods. So we declared like the properties and then we use them. Okay. So this was the way that we will use them. Like the object now, these are public. Okay. That's why we can use them to like store like the value of like store like set the value to the object fields. Then we talked about like the importance of thinking about the constructors. What's a constructor? Is a special type of method. Every class has to have at least have one like constructor. Okay, has to, like should have at least one constructor. Usually the default constructor is the one that doesn't have a parameter. First of all, how do you identify what's a constructor? It's a special type of method. It's like any other method with the difference that it doesn't have a return type. It doesn't have a return type. The name of the method is exactly the same name as the class name. And then either it doesn't have any parameter, or if it has a parameter, means that you want to use this constructor. When you create an object from the class, you want to also initialize this set of fields. Okay. In this case, I create a constructor. So when I call, I can also initialize like the class fields like auto ID and like model and make at once. So it gave me that flexibility. Okay. So here we had this example. Let me just move this up. Okay. So we had this example. We said, okay, this is a constructor that doesn't have a parameter. It's the default of a class. So when I create an object and initialize it without any like passing any data to the object, I'm calling that constructor. Okay, I'm calling that constructor, which is like I use the and then I collected the inputs like later at a time, one at a time, or like at different times, and then like store the information. Or if you already have the information before you're creating the object. This is the example that you're going to have to use when you're working with databases. There's already hundreds of like records in the database. When you like connect to the database and load the information, you don't want to like set every like object variable one at a time. You want to like quickly load the information into the object. So I use that constructor to store it, like initialize the object as well as like storing the information. So I call the other constructor for this one. I call that constructor. And then pass the data, and now it's like the data is stored in the object. Okay. And lastly, we talked about the difference between a class and object. By now, we kind of like talked about this, which is, okay, class is just a template. We create this template of a unit, and then like create objects or instances from the class and store information in the objects. So you can see that we have created like 5 objects from the same class, 5 instances of the same class. Each of them is storing information about the different cars. Each of them are going to like have like keep the information about like a different car, and then you can like maybe we want to use it to display it to the user or like for any other reason. But you see, we create the objects from the class. There is one class from the same class, we create different objects. Okay, any question? Okay, any question? So this was like a review, quick review of like what we talked about like last session. So what we are gonna do is like we're gonna work on this practice that I've put like a step by step here, the instructions. Okay. This is one of the practices that we actually like worked on like a while ago. Okay. Let me see. It was on unit 6. So unit 6. Okay. So in unit 6, when we talked about movie ticket application, we had this like an application here. You can go to unit 6 and download it. Let me see if I can zoom out a little bit. So what's the application we worked on? You would like get like some like information about like the title, director, ticket status, the like maybe like the release year, number of tickets, ticket ID, ticket price. Some of them we wanted to collect from the user, and then like we wanted to create a ticket, movie ticket, right? So we would do like the calculations. We need to get like calculate the subtotal and then like the tax amount and then the service cost, and at the end add them to be able to calculate the like the total. And then like issue the ticket, print like basically, the receipt of ticket, and then display it to the user. Then we would like do another one as example as well. So the idea of a class is that we like treat things as one single unit. So I want to like treat a ticket as a single unit. I want to say every ticket has like these features as well as like has its like the cost as well as the tax amount. That's when you look at the ticket, that's what you would see. Who is the like director? Who is like the movie? With what time is it? Like it's so many other things, right? And then like how much like you got 4 tickets. What was the ticket price? And this is your total. This is the tax amount and service and so on. Okay. So I want to treat it as like one unit. Say one, I have a ticket and these are its fields or its characteristics, and it can be used to like generate a ticket. So with that mindset, I want to like create this program, the same program, but this time object oriented. Okay, using the object oriented concept. So let's create a new project. I'll create a new project. Okay, I'll just call this ticket app. Okay. Okay. So I want to like work on the same project, but this time with like an idea of like implementing programs, like using object-oriented concepts, treating things. You see, what is the problem here? I will store about like the tickets information in separate fields. One like the ticket, the title of a movie is stored in a variable, and then again another one in a different variable. What if like somehow we like remove one of them, or like replace one of them? This is like information is separately stored in different places. I want to treat it as one single unit, single data entity, okay? And then say these are its fields, and then just like treat it as like a ticket. Ticket fields, ticket like properties, and these are like everything about one ticket should be stored in one package. So what I will do, I'll start like with this. So I want to like treat one single like data entity or unit. So I want to create one unit, which is like basically creating a class here. And I will for like Windows, like the Mac is just going to add and then new class. For Windows user, you can also check the slide. So if you go through the slide for unit 8, like you can see the steps for Windows. But for Windows, again, on the right side, if you have a solution explorer, you will see the name of the project, click right, you will see an add, go to add, and then a new class. So I add a new class, remove the name and just add ticket. We don't need to add ticket class. It's a class. We are just naming that like my class or unit as a ticket. Okay, so create a class. So when you create a class, it automatically adds the default constructor, default class constructor. You see, there is like a public class ticket and then public ticket. This is a method, right? It looks like a method, but with a little bit like differences that it doesn't have a return type. Its name is the same name as the class name. So this is kind of a default constructor. So now, okay, so this one is just a constructor. Every class has to at least have one constructor. Yes. That's okay. If you don't have it, just type and like if sometimes it doesn't add it. So how do we like what's the constructor? The constructor is like this, like adding a public is a method. So it starts with the access type. And then it doesn't have a return type, so we don't have a space, and then the name of the method, which is the name of the class, exactly the same name of the class. And then parentheses, and then like brackets. Okay, this is a constructor. If your class like doesn't have a constructor, like you won't be able to like create an object, like initialize an object from it. Let's see if we go back to the program class, okay. Now, since I already created the class in the same directory, I will have access, I can access to the class. You see, if I type ticket, I will see that as a class. And class is like, with the green. So program class, ticket class. We want to create an instance or object from the class, okay? So you can name it anything, but like usually if you're just using one, like creating one instance, just use the same name as the class name, but it should start with a lowercase, okay? This is the name of the object or instance, equal new, and then again, the ticket. Here is the thing. At this point, I'm trying to also initialize the object. And for initializing the object, I need to call a constructor. By adding the like parentheses, you're kind of like calling the constructor. For now, there's only one constructor and the constructor doesn't have any parameter. Okay, so it doesn't show you how like there are only like more than like only one constructor. But this one, like the parenthesis call, is that you're calling exactly that constructor. You're calling this method. You're calling this method that like is a constructor without a parameter, and it allows you to create an object from the class and initialize it without setting any value to the class fields. For now, we haven't added any field, but that's what that constructor gives you flexibility or like allows you to do, that create an object and initialize the object from the class. So for now, we're just like using that constructor, and later we'll add more constructors, and then we can like see the difference. So let's go back to like the class itself. Now, we want to say every ticket, okay, like in this program, we saw that like we created multiple tickets. See, it was our first ticket, we created it, and then again, we created other tickets as well. But we want to like treat like all of the tickets will have this field. So we want to treat every ticket as one unit and say every ticket has ticket, like has a title, like a movie title, the director, like the number of tickets, ticket ID, and ticket price. So that means when I'm creating like a single unit, like a ticket, I'm adding them as a characteristics of this unit. So what I say, and you start with like specifying the class fields as private from now on, okay? We want to make sure that like the fields are private to the class. So private string and then title. Title and then director. Okay. So what are these? These are class fields. Remember, where do we specify the class fields? Inside the class, not inside the method. If you specify a field inside the method, you're making it local to the method. That's the difference. But like by specifying the class fields inside the class, you're making this as a as a characteristic of that class. You're saying a ticket has a like a movie title, has a like a director. So these are kind of like the features of a ticket. Okay. And then private oh, uh, private int number of tickets. That's and then also ticket ID. Also, we have private and double. Price. Yes.
The other ones, because we're gonna do another one.
No, I want like there are so many fields. I want to like try not to add so many other fields. Like try to like limit it so we can like kind of move on that side. But like here's the thing. Like for now, we are only focusing on one unit. So there are so many fields that you can think about the ticket. But later, as we move forward, you'll see that like maybe think about this unit and say, can we separate it? Like when you create one unit, and then can you like separate it to multiple units? Then I will say yes, we can create like instead of having this unit, we can have ticket as well as a movie title, movie director. This is a single unit for itself. The same way that you would create a database. There are different data entities that you can separate them and then connect them through primary keys, foreign keys. We're going to do that the same way, hopefully next week, like implement that concept here as well when we create like connect the classes and connect these units. So for now, let's think that like these are just like characteristics of a ticket. Okay, so we created the class fields. If I go back, try to like say ticket, I'm using the object and dot, I won't be able to see any of the fields because they're declared as a private. They're declared as a private. So that means like I like here for now, I can like set values to, like if I want, I created the object and I want to get the information and then store it in the object. I can't do that. That's why I want to like create a way that like we can set values, we can read the values of a ticket. That's when we actually talk about the class properties. Okay. And say we create class properties so we can like set values or like get the values of class fields. So what's a property? Again, it's a special type of a method. So it's a method, so it's a access type, and it's like we want to enable others to access it. That's why we always specify it as public. By making it public, you're making it accessible outside. And then the data type, so a string, I'm creating a property for title or for movie title. So it's public, a string, and then it's a method, so it should be like a Pascal case. Another thing about this method is that it shouldn't have a parenthesis. You shouldn't add the parenthesis for the property. Instead, just directly add the like curly brackets. Inside the property, then you specify like what can we do with this field, with the property. You can allow people to only read the information from it like a field. You can allow people like others to like set a value to a field. You can allow like people to set a field, set a value as well as reading it. So this allows you to think about which one of these you want to allow like people to do using this property. So if you define the get side, get is a keyword, right? It's a blue means keyword, so it's reserved word that has particular task here. If you say get and then return, the get side is used to return the value. Okay. Return title. So you see, because this is a class field, we can directly use that field or like we have access to it. It's accessible through every method. So I created a property that I can call to get the value of a title, of a ticket title. If I go back to the program class, like every time I want to like show you what is like changing as we move forward. So if I type title, ticket, it created an instance from the class ticket. Now we can see the title as a property. But if we go to the property, what do we see? It says it's a string, and what happened? Okay. Okay, so what it says, dot, and then title. Okay, so it says get. You see the get? You created a property that you can only use it to get the value of title. So it's still no one can like use this property to set a value to a ticket title. So this allows you to think about which ones you want to like try to get. Why is it important? Because like, for example, like you don't want anyone, like let's say you're storing information about like the customers and you're storing information about like their like everything. One of them is like social security number. Once you store information or like you have access to the database, you don't want to allow anyone to change this like the social security number. It's one of the properties of every like it's one of like if you think of them as a customer, this is one of the characteristics of a customer social security number. And I say, I'm going to allow you to read the value, like if you need to know what is the social security number, but I won't allow you to change it. By not adding the set side, you're like limiting their ability to change that value in the database. That's the difference. By like creating these properties, we are thinking actually about like what I want others to do like with the data, because now we're actually dealing with like changing and manipulating the data. But in this case, we're just creating the ticket. So we want to also like maybe like allow to set a value. So I will define the set side as well and say title equals values. So again, value is a keyword. So like and every time in the step side, you type the name of the field, equal, and then value. Okay, let's do this for every one of the like the fields that we have. I'll just try to like add them in one line. Okay. Just go with that. So public string. I'm gonna do it a little bit faster. So sorry about that. Like if you have questions, director, and then again, like brackets, get, return, director, instead, director equals value. Like, mm, um, okay, finally. there's a shorter version for this, but like for now, we just want to like do this. I think that in the new version, there are like like kind of a shorter version or faster version to add the properties for the fields. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. So we declare the properties, okay? For now, like we had the constructor. We didn't have it, we added the constructor. Class field and then properties to like access or like set a value to the class field. Now, if we go back to the program class, okay, now we can see that we have the properties. And like for each of them, we define get and set. So that means we can like use them to set the value. So now let's create a ticket. Okay. So if I wanted to like actually like I created an object, for instance, from the class, initialize it. Now I want to prompt the user to give me the data so I can store the data in that, like getting a one ticket information. So console that right line. Okay, let's do what we would do. Enter a title. Now, these fields are become part of the ticket. So we are storing everything about the ticket inside the object. So that means, like I say, I've created a ticket. This ticket has a title. So if you're getting the ticket title, you're storing in the title, ticket price, ticket number of tickets. Okay. So you're getting the like features of that ticket and storing it in one object. So console straight line. Okay. And then console that right line. What's the other one? Enter director. This course we practice like typing very fast and like it becomes a little bit better as we move forward. Please. Okay. Ticket dot okay. So ticket director. Ticket number of tickets is like integers, so use convert, not to int. Right. Oh, convert that to int and console at read line. Okay, we are just getting all the inputs. Console, that's right line. Okay, enter. Number of tickets. What was it? Ticket ID and price. Okay, ticket ID. Uh, tickets. Somewhere. Int. Oh, to int. And finally, the last one. Tickets. Oh, okay. I got this number of tickets and should be ticket ID. This was the ticket ID. And the last one is the ticket price. It was a double, right? Convert to double. So that's my line. Okay, finally. So you see, instead of like now, like in the previous version, the data would be separately stored in different variables. But now the data is stored in one object. But the object will hold every information about itself. It's like the price, it's like the number of tickets, it's like the title, the movie. That's why like we will have all the information stored in one package, one object, and we can like use that object like and like to access different sort of information about the ticket. But we know that it's stored in one place instead of like separately stored in different places. Okay, so we created a ticket, we're just issuing one ticket. With this information, whatever the information is provided, we will create one ticket. Now, so we would get the ticket, get the information. What would we would do like after that? So after that, after we collected the information about the ticket, then we would like do these calculations. We would calculate the subtotal based on the number of tickets and ticket price. You see, what is the method is doing? You supply the information based on every time based on what is the ticket price and what is the number of tickets, it calculates it and it returns the value. It doesn't get the input. Input has already been collected. So the method is designed to get two data points and like perform that task and return the result. One single task to calculate the subtotal based on the number of tickets and the ticket price. Returns that we stored in that variable. Then we can also like pass the subtotal to calculate the tax amount. If this is the total like price, like based on this and based on the tax rate, what would be the tax amount? And then again, service amount. Okay, so we calculate the service amount and store the service amount, and then pass this information to this like other method that would add up all the information and finally calculate the total cost price. And then we would issue the ticket. But these steps will these functions or like tasks or processes are done on every ticket. If they are done on every ticket, if we are creating it like a template for every ticket, why not adding that to the template? And say with every ticket comes it calculates subtotal. With every ticket comes calculate the tax amount. So if that's the case, I'm going to treat this as part of this class, as part of the ticket, and say I'm going to add this and like these into also like the template itself. So I want to create one method, which is public. Okay, so let me add this comment here. If a method is not a property, okay, this is a property method, this is a constructor method. If not, it's not none of them, it's not a constructor or like property, we call it kind of a like class behavior methods. These are the behaviors of that class. It could be a search, it could be calculation, it could be creating a string. These are just just consider them as like class behaviors, okay? So behavior methods. Like behavior methods like doing calculations, okay? Search, it could be like creating a strings, okay? Just consider them could be like consider as like this category of behavior methods. Just a quick note, like one thing you want to know is that the order doesn't matter. I could declare the proper the constructor here and instead of here. So in the class, it's just a template. So the order doesn't matter. It's better that first you create the fields and then constructors and then properties and then class behaviors. So that's the structure you want to go. But still, any way you implement it's not going to impact the result. Okay, so we want to create a method. So it says it starts with the access type. So we'll call it public. Remember, we talked about like creating methods in a class, and we said if you're creating a method in the program class, you would have to add the static like here in the title. But when you're creating a method inside the class that you've created, you don't have like you shouldn't add a static into the title of the method. Okay, so we shouldn't add a static in the title of the method and say public, and then is like the data type. So we want to create a method like the one that we had here. Okay, to calculate the subtotal, to get the number of tickets, the ticket price, and calculate the subtotal. And like it will return that value. So I'll say public double, okay, calculate subtotal, yes. So here, when I implemented this version, because the variables were local, I would have to pass the information about the ticket price and the number of tickets. The variables were defined as like local. So it would like they would be like declared as a variable inside the main method. That's why we would have to like pass the information every time we call that method. But here's the thing. Now these fields are part of the class. So if you are going to calculate the subtotal, you don't need to supply the information. You can directly use the field inside the methods. Okay. So you can say double, let's say subtotal equals, okay, what is that? It's the number of tickets times the ticket price. Every field, every class field is accessible to its methods, to the class methods. Okay, so we don't need to supply that as a parameter. That's why I can like directly like call any like use this any of the fields in the calculations and inside the methods inside the class. It's private. You can access to it after creating an object, but inside the template or inside the class, you can use that, and you don't need to supply the information. And then return the subtotal. It's a calculated like calculation. If you're calculating something, if I'm asking you to calculate this, I'll probably expect you to give me the result of the calculation in return. That's why I declared with the return type to return the like the result of the calculation. Now, so far I haven't talked about this part about like the calculated fields. I want to talk about them now. Okay. So what's a calculated field? These are the fields that we created as a class field. These are usually the inputs. These are values are like known or like needs to be known before like you can like perform any type of function. But then we have like some fields like this, the subtotal, it's a result of a calculation. If like sometimes like if these are important like they like a field or like data points that like you perform like a calculation and you get like you get that value, it's like it's better that the object knows or stores that information and carries that information. If that is the case, in order to like make that happen for the object, what should we do? We should make it as a class field. We should make it as a class field. So when the value is stored in the field, for now, here is a local field. The subtotal is a local field. So after this method is over, the value will be lost. It will be returned, like wherever is like the is called, but the object itself is not storing the information. Okay, let me see this here. In this case, I need to create a value, okay, double subtotal equals, okay, because what? Ticket dot, I can call the method, calculate the subtotal. and then parentheses and okay. It's a method, so we need to add the parentheses here. So you see, we created a method without parentheses. We're not supplying information because the object itself is still carrying that information about the number of tickets and the ticket price. So it can, like, by calling that method, inside that internally, it can use that information to calculate it and then return the result. But it returns it, but the object itself is not storing the information because this field, okay, this field was local. In case, but like sometimes like we're gonna use this like the result maybe in a different calculation or like sometimes we need them. So how do we make the object to carry that information later? By making it as a class field, okay? So I'm gonna separately declare them. Here, class field, I'll declare like specify class calculated fields. Class calculated field. And I will like move it like declaring this here and say private. Okay, again, it's a field. It's a private, like a double, private, double, and then sub total. I declare it as a like class field, so I don't have to define it in the local. Now it's not local anymore. Okay, so pay attention, I removed this here. I removed it like defining it here. I define it as a class field. Okay, when I do the calculation and store in the field, now the object will carry that information. Also, it will be returned as well. Okay, whenever it like this method is called, it will be returned, but also the object will have that. So when you call it, it will like be done. Yes, we won't be able to like create. We don't have any parameter, like any property to know the value of that field. Why? Okay, for the fields, for the calculated fields, I'm not going to create a property. For the calculated fields, I'm not going to create a property. Why? Let's go back. What was the reason that we created the properties for the fields? Because we wanted to allow a way to set a value or get a value of a field. Right? We wanted to create it like a way to get the value of a field or set a value to a field. This method is doing the same thing, right? When you call this method, it will set a value to subtotal, calculates it, number of tickets times ticket price, and then it stores in subtotal. So you're actually doing the set side. You're actually setting the value or storing the value in that field. That's why I'm not going to declare any properties for this field and say anytime you wanna know what is the value of subtotal, just call that method so it can calculate it right away. It's the calculation. Maybe in the middle of something has changed, the number of tickets has changed, and like the subtotal needs to be changed again. That's why without declaring a property, you're making sure that its value will only be received by calling this and calculating it right away. You calculate it right away, and then you will set the value stored. The benefit of this will come after we add the next part, and then we'll see how actually the object having that value and carrying that value helps a lot over time. Even if we are not going to define any property here to access directly to the value of subtotal through the property. You already have a calculated method, and it calculates the field value and it stores it. This can be used a lot of times later as well. Okay, so here first we did the ticket and then call the method. It will calculate, the value will be collected, and then we calculate the ticket total and then return. Great. Well, let's stop here and then continue the next session. Thank you.